Welcome to a brand new episode of On VJ's playlist. And guess what? It always gives me an immense pleasure and absolute joy whenever I'm talking to an artist or to anyone who hails from the beautiful northeastern regions of our country. And I have somebody who is aptly the face of Arunachal Pradesh, its people and its music, and somebody who always fascinates me with his music, his storytelling, and just his ability to be an amazing person in the face of adversity. We will learn a lot about him through the course of this conversation. But Takar Nabam, welcome, and thank you so much for doing this. For those of you who don't know, Takar is under the weather, but I am very grateful that he took the time out to speak to me today. Thank you so much for that, Takar. I want to firstly begin by asking you, are you better? How are you doing?
Well, firstly, thanks so much for having me. I've been actively following your page and what you've been doing for the independent music scene. It's really wonderful, and it's nice to see the music being supported and being heard in other part of the country. So thanks for that. Yes, I'm feeling a little better than I was feeling in the morning, but still I need to recover a bit more to feel normal again, to be running around, picking up my instruments again. So yeah, still kind of under the weather, but yes, should be able to pull this through. Yeah.
More power to you, Takar. I see it's a beautiful studio, and this is the makeshift studio that everybody kept highlighting and speaking about when you were promoting your EP Red and Yellow back in 2021, and you spoke a lot about how you had to shift from Delhi to back to Arunachal, and you decided to I think you convinced your family that you could actually make a life and career out of music, and it took a lot emotionally, financially, and mentally for you to convince yourself and to convince your loved ones. And I see that that studio is very much a symbol of sorts, if I may say so, of that belief and that support that you enjoy now from your family. Just I'm sure you can't give us a whole, a tour right now, walkthrough right now to your studio, but if you could just, oh
I can
yes,
show
we
you.
see
I
we
can
see
really
the
show you.
keys, but it just looks so beautiful.
The keys
Oh
are here,
wow.
and I've got some synth here, got a mic to record. It's pretty much ready to record. Like, I just have to sit and just a few guitars that I use for the recordings, and a bass
Right.
guitar too. And this one is like down from like 20 years back when I
Yes.
was playing metal. So yeah, crazy memories with that. And I've got
Yes.
the wait a sec. The Dramian is also here. The
Um,
info
I'm
instrument.
afraid,
This is
Takar,
a Vitara.
your
You can say,
uh,
yeah, and my sound card.
yes. I was about to let you know that
Sorry.
your the frame had frozen a lot. So apologies to my viewers who
Okay,
couldn't see all of it. I think it's bad network out here, but
sure,
roughly
sure.
what everyone could gather, I think it's beautiful how you have set all that up. Clearly, it reflects of all the hard work and all the efforts and the passion that you have put behind your music through the years. So for those who do not know, Takar has been one of the most recognizable and relatable faces in the independent music industry, to have hailed from the Northeast and from Arunachal Pradesh. Before everything else, Takar, let's begin, talking about your initial journey when you were a young boy, listening to music like so many of us and just getting deeply inspired. Firstly, back home, in your immediate family, because from what I know, it's a very, very traditional Arunachal setup where your home environment is surrounded by a lot of people who are very spiritual, they're very religious, they're very they love singing their hymns. You all have your choir.
Mm.
There's a lot of music going on in the household. So what was your immediate exposure to music as a young boy?
Wow. So really have to go back a couple of decades. Anyway, so I'm not that old anyway. So my I was living. We were staying as a joint family at one time. This is back in the early 90s. And I remember, I used to hear these loud, distorted guitar sounds and like drum beats being like, played. And it was like crazy loud. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I would just go and like just put my ears like right next to the door and see what's going on. And I can hear something is going on. I don't know what is a guitar or what is a drum or whatever it is. And I would enter, and my cousin brother, he had a band of his. They were playing at the time, and I would just watch the television, and there were some music videos being played, as far as I can recall. So that really intrigued me in the beginning. That okay, there is an instrument, which has string, or it seems like it can be played with the hands. Uh, and later, in about 2 or 3 years time, when I was sent to Delhi to pursue my education, uh, I I was fortunately a part of my music school's Western Music Society, where I got introduced to a lot of amazing singers, the singers who were singing in choir, or my seniors, were a couple of batches senior to me, 5 or 6 batches senior to me, and they had a school band. They used to cover all these amazing rock songs, from Floyd to Guns N' Roses to Iron Maiden, Megadeth, and all these things. So a lot of things were going on, and my first introduction to Western music at the time was through Backstreet Boys, and it used to be aired quite often on that. I think it was MTV, or they had this local channel called KTV, and they used to play these pirated videos on request. So I remember watching them, and then I remember watching videos of Eagles, Hotel California, and a bunch of other artists like Ozzy Osbourne. So a lot of things were going on, and I felt inspired to pick up the instrument. And this is back in around 2002 when I first when my dad first bought me an acoustic guitar. It was a Gibson guitar, priceless, I would say, because that the kind of joy it brought me at that time. I was like, man, I'm the happiest person alive. And when I got that guitar, I remember not going to school for a couple of days and just trying to figure out the instrument, sitting on it for 8 hours, 10 hours consecutively, and without knowing, without having any direction. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't
Hello?
realize I was on. Yeah,
Lost
can you
me
hear
there?
me? Yes,
Yeah, I
can you
can
hear
hear you.
me?
So, yeah. So, I guess you got till that Gibson guitar point, right?
Yeah, we were at Gibson guitar. I mean, I wanted to say that how beautiful it is, because I can understand at that point of time it was a Gibson guitar was so aspirational. It was so it was quite an expensive and very fancy purchase,
Yeah.
to be made back
Give,
in the
give,
day.
Gibson with the V, not the B. The
Okay.
fake Gibson.
Oh, it's
But
with a V.
yeah, with the V, with the V.
Oh,
So, I mean, yeah,
oh God.
at that
So are
time,
you?
Gibson, even Gibson was like, my God.
Oh,
Yeah, I
lovely.
think I figured you probably heard it wrong. Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty good for the time, it was really, really good. And I think, it had its own imperfections, and to learn to play on that with all those imperfections and limitations was something so exciting, and something of a different experience that I got in my initial days. So yes, from that time, from cousin inspiring me to my school music society, I was playing in my school circuit for a few years. We used to compete in inter-school competition, and my first fondness or connection to music was through the guitar only. And only later on, I kind of got into writing my songs, trying to sing them, journaling my journey, and channelizing all my emotions and my stories through songs. So that happened much later. You could say probably 2012 or 13 onwards. Yeah.
But I think, Takar, when I listen to your music, it is so full of vulnerability, if I may use that word, because uh, we in the we are not like we are still very cut off when it comes to how life and people behave in the northeastern setting. Like unfortunately we have too much, ignorance and stereotypes are just roaming around. It's out there free and at large, and so much of lack of representation, so much of misinformation has led to this kind of disconnect. But
Mm.
that's where that's where the magic of music comes in, that when you listen to artists singing from different corners of the country, you realize that we may speak different languages, we may speak different we may have different cultures, and our lifestyle habits may vary, but the emotions, the core emotions, they remain the same. And like I said, when we speak about your song, there's so much vulnerability. It's an emotion that we are trying to normalize. And I shouldn't actually use the word normalize, I kind of hate that word, but the fact that we want to come across more men who are very open and who are very who absolutely are unabashed about laying out their vulnerability and emotions. We'd like to see more of that in the mainstream discourse, and you do it so
Mm.
effortlessly with your music. Because when I hear Those Colorful Days, for those who do not know, uh, it's a 2022 release by Takar, which is now his most popular song across streaming platforms. It's the song that gets in the maximum listeners. But you wrote that song during such a time when you were possibly going through a phase. I don't know how did you manage to do that. You were in Delhi. Uh, your wife is expecting, your child, and the pandemic was going on. It was, I think, during the second wave of the pandemic, where you all were stranded in different cities, and I
Yeah.
guess even your child was at the time of birth, she wasn't really in the best of health. I can imagine the amount of toll it could have taken on you mentally and emotionally. And during those days is when you sat down and wrote this song. How did you make that happen, Takar?
So, yeah, so that was a really, really heavy phase to go through, and I certainly hope that people don't have to go through that sort of an experience. But for me as an artist, I somehow find writing about my lowest points the most liberating, you could say. Kind of, is a way to kind of get out of feeling too, let's say, sorry for yourself or feeling too bad about a certain situation, and just, because that is how things happened, and that's how it is, and there's no lying, or there's no trying to create portray a different picture of that. And I think that was such a an important part in my life, an important learning lesson, and I learned so many things. And that unexpected things can happen to anybody, and we should be ready for them. And there of course there are some really amazing times that I that we all have. We all have our shares of amazing times and really worst times. And during the worst times, I was trying to think of the best times, some of the really amazing times, and I was like just hoping for certain things to happen. And a lot of things didn't happen the way they were, but yes, we sailed past through it, and the song was definitely one of the main things that kind of helped me, sail through it emotionally and mentally. I needed that. If I didn't do it, I would probably I would have gone crazy or something. Something would have happened. I don't know, but that was. I'm glad that window of inspiration came, and like in let's say 10 minutes, I just jot down the song, and I was just like trying to work around the song afterwards. But yeah, so to me, like I find writing about my lowest points very inspiring, I guess, or like something liberating and exciting. So I guess the word that you used to describe vulnerability, vulnerable, is certainly very appropriate for the kind of songs that I usually write. Yeah. that was my experience, and just getting past through that time. The song was composed around that time.
You know, I just it kind of connected with me now when you said that you find liberation in being vulnerable and letting out your emotions. Uh, because
Mm.
that's how even I operate on a personal level a lot. Like I have no qualms about expressing my emotions, irrespective of what they are. It may be anger, it may be disappointment, it may be, you know, love, whatever, in all its forms. But what you just said when you spoke about, finding, letting out emotions being liberating, I think that same sentiment kind of reflected even in your 2021 EP Red and Yellow, because they were tackling with two very contrasting emotions that you were going through. While on one side there was like, in your words, while red was representing anger and
Mm.
angst, yellow, in your opinion, stood for nostalgia, when you were falling back to the good times. So while you were making that EP also, then could we say that, yeah, red and yellow was being made um, before the pandemic and after the pandemic? Like, do you think the EP carried influences of both phases?
Yes, you could say so. This because as one of the songs I started writing, and that was not with the intention of me trying to write a bunch of songs to put it into an EP or an album. Sorry. So one of the songs came just a year before Red and Yellow was conceptualized, and only when the pandemic was just about to kickstart, I already had a bunch of two or three more songs that I had on me that I wanted to record. And while the pandemic happened, those songs got recorded. I think during the pandemic, one of the songs came to me. This was during 2000, during the first wave of COVID. That's when it happened, 2020. Ashes, I think it was Ashes that I kind of wrote in the beginning, but I further, made the song. I explored more into the song, dived deeply into each and every song during the pandemic, and wrote completed them. So yes, I think I would say for me, the song that was really inspired by pandemic period was Those Colorful Days. But Red and Yellow was something that happened before the pandemic. It's just that things got recorded during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Fortunately, wasn't sitting idle at home and recording recording my songs. And also that was that was the time when I first, I guess, realized the importance of having your own comfortable space to just, it might not be the best space, it might not be the best treated room, but if you have a small setup of something that you can just sit down and just, everything is like plugged in, you just go in and just record your idea, because I'm like, I wanted that. So that is when, during pandemic one, that's when it hit me, and I bought a few things. Fortunately, I could do it before just when the COVID was, things were just starting. And during the COVID, I could just spend most of my time just working on the songs and their structures and refining them. So that happened. Yeah, so Red and Yellow definitely was before the pandemic phase. Yeah.
But from the time you began your career in 2016, Takar, it's been 7 years of you doing, almost 7 years of you doing music independently now. I think one of the biggest milestones of your career so far was when you opened for Metallica in Bangalore. So firstly, do you have a fond memory from that experience that you would like to share with us, that you've never spoken about before anywhere on record?
So I was, like I said, in my earlier like teen days, and when I was in college, I was playing with a heavy metal band. If you can see that spiky looking guitar with the,
Yeah.
yeah, so that is symbolic of that particular phase. Although it's not in the best shape to be played right now, but it has a meaning, it has a symbol, it represents an era that was, it was a crazy era. And for us as a metal band to getting to open for the legends of the metal music was, we still, it took us a long time for it to really sink in that it happened. You know, uh, fond memory would be, of course, like getting to meet the band backstage, taking a nice picture with the whole band. That was something very special. And it just happened in a flash of few seconds and it just went. And even till date, it feels like it never happened, just unbelievable that it ever happened. I think besides that, just that journey of getting, competing with the other bands for this competition to perform for them was more inspiring and exciting than just getting on stage and playing in front of, let's say, 25, 30,000 people. And then, of course, eventually meeting the band. So that whole journey was very exciting to me, of course. Yeah.
Uh, I was reading a quote, somewhere in one of your interviews, Takar, where you've spoken about how you decided to shift back to, your home state, Arunachal Pradesh, because you wanted to somewhere preserve tradition.
Mm.
You felt a sort of sense of disconnect from, the language that you had kind of grown up in your earlier days, speaking. For I'm not sure if I'm getting this correctly, but just help me understand that you belong to the Nishi tribe in Arunachal Pradesh. We here in Mumbai or the rest of India, we are not as familiar with the indigenous
Mm.
tribes and the families that kind of they're omnipresent in Arunachal Pradesh and in surrounding
Mm.
northeastern regions. But from what I understand, a lot of the influences of music in the Nishi tribe is very, if not very, but somewhat similar to the kind of music the kind of folk music that's followed in Assam during the festival of Bihu. Is that a
Mm.
fair assumption?
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. Because our people back in the day, they did not have access to recording studios or even
Yeah.
the technology or the instruments. Because most of our people are from the villages, disconnected. There were no roads, and mobility was a big task, big issue. And a lot of the clans are warrior clans. They used to fight for their piece of land or piece of their harvest and things like that. So, still, our people have to come a long way. We've come a long way for sure with the mobility and everything now, but there are still like first generation of the family studying like for the having getting formal education for the very first time.
Oh.
I mean, luckily for us, I'm second generation. Getting access to good education and have the you could say the privilege of at least getting to play an instrument or having even thinking about pursuing music full time, so that is something that's very that's something that I'm sure like a lot of people don't know about Arunachal and a lot of the tribal states here. So at the time, because we did have like a lot of folk singers who were trying to fuse with contemporary style of music. For them, the contemporary music was what was happening around in Assam in the cities and all. So Assam was the nearest one for us. So a lot of the music that got the background scores that got composed for the singers here were all done by the Assamese musicians. So their contribution to the music in our state and the preservation of the some of the folk songs is has to be we need to give it to them for helping us out at the time. And the music was such it was very similar to the music that was played for the Assamese songs also. And eventually I think over time things have opened up. Now we have access to internet, we have access to music from all across the world, access to pop music from the west, and so on and so forth, that people are now experimenting with different styles of music and trying to see what vibes best, what it is that works best for them. And I think it's a very healthy thing, and I still feel that we still have a long way to go before we kind of find like something very solid for us, for our people to like say that this is a very true representation of who we are, and like very authentic, I would say. Because we're still exploring a lot of different sounds, and people are also getting to hear a whole new set of sounds now because of, like I said, internet and everything. So yes, we have a long way to go. We have definitely come up a long way from just being in the villages, not connected, to having good roads and to getting education, to finally getting access to music from across the world. Yeah.
When you speak about how educate, how you as a family are possibly the first in your immediate surroundings to have acquired a decent formal education. Because I think in the same interview I also read how uh, them often people misunderstand or kind of mistake the fact that if you hail from the northeast, there is a very natural inclination towards music. But I believe in the same
Mm.
interview you also maintained that how your family focused a lot upon getting education, upon getting the conventional idea of securing a good life for yourself. Is that true?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And even till date, like, my mom sometimes says, you should have studied for maybe some competitive exams or become an officer or something, because very conventional school of thought again. And
Yeah.
my father, otherwise, he's more liberal because he studied properly, and he knows that, the world has so much to offer, and there's so many things that you one can do. And it's not the even if you fail in one thing, it's not the end of it. I'm sure there are alternate avenues for surviving and still doing what you love, because sometimes you need to juggle things if things aren't working the way you want them to, and that's completely fine. So yes, that sort of pressure was there. I studied, like, I did coaching for engineering and all of that, like, full-fledgedly. I was very studious, very nerdy, and it was things were getting a little out of control after a point. So I decided not to continue that. Something happened, and I just chose a line, completely different path, and I'm so much, I guess, happier whatever I'm getting to do right now. At least I have the liberty to do things the way I want them to. Yeah.
Being your own boss is always the best feeling, no, Takar?
Yeah, it has its plus and minuses too, for sure.
For those who aren't aware, Takar is now a young father to a very, very adorable. I think, isn't she two right now, your daughter?
She's gonna turn 22 months in about 10 days from now. Yeah.
But I think always between Takar and me, whatever little exchange that we have had on Instagram is always because of I just cannot stop gushing over how adorable his daughter is. So, coming to that, Takar, how much of calm and composure has fatherhood brought to your life, and how much of a perspective has it given to you as a musician, and your approach towards your craft?
I somehow knew that this question was going to be thrown at me, and I haven't thought of an answer, but yes, let me try. Let me try this. Fatherhood, like, you know, um, it's I don't know, like, I don't know if it sounds cliche, but it's just given me like a sense of a deeper purpose, or like a deeper sense of being, just existing. I'm like, okay, if if not for me, like, if maybe it's for her or whatever that I want to do, I just want the best for her. And I somehow, like, don't prioritize myself too much nowadays. I feel, there's so much beyond just yourself, and there's so much that needs to be taken care of. There are so many other factors, so many other things, and that is the beauty of it. Since she came to our world, she has taught us to be understanding, be more humble, be acceptable to more changes, and whatever uncertain times may come, you just want to be ready for them, and uh, find all the possible solutions, the best possible solutions for it. So yeah, I mean, I guess I've done my share of going through some of the hardest times, and it's time to really enjoy the moment, enjoy the time that I have with my daughter, and hopefully, you know be a good father. So yes, it's given a very holistic meaning to life for sure. Yeah.
Why it became imperative for me to ask you that question, Takar, is because as an individual, I have grown up with, I used to, back in Pune, I used to live in a hostel where I had a lot of, most of my hostel mates, they hail from the Northeast. So I have been very, very, have been exposed, to the kind of lives that you all lead, your food,
Mm.
how passionate are all of you about food actually? How some of the, the local delicacies from each region is so beautiful to say the least. And what I have always appreciated about, the Northeastern states, and something which I really hope becomes a norm, in the rest of the country, is how as a society it's a very very matriarchal society, given up,
Mm.
the largely patriarchal setup that dominates India. I really like how Northeasterns are always one step ahead when it comes to giving the women in their house that kind of importance, that kind of leverage ahead. Again, is that correct?
Uh, what you're referring to, I think it's very, very common, like in Meghalaya. But here in Arunachal, to highlight, it's still quite the opposite. Although things are changing around here because it was a still a very highly patriarchal society here in Arunachal, and there are things that still need to be reformed. Like more preference to a son or something like that is still given here. So
Oh,
that thing still needs time, and things are changing very slow. But with the but because of now social media and so many organizations, and especially the women's cell, they're trying to make people aware of things that needs to be changed. And yes, I'm also very supportive of that. And uh, although in towns and cities is still gotten a little better, still in the villages, I feel not a lot needs to be done. And still,
yeah.
people need to really have a change of their mindset to come out of it. Like why a guy should do this and not a girl, or something like that. A girl should always clean the house or something like that. So it's very sad, but there are still practices and, like, people who are still thinking in on those lines. And I think it just boils down to quality education and awareness being spread to the people effectively. So that hasn't happened, I feel, and I think it will take some more time before this particular generation who are getting educated and getting better access to education are able to replace that mindset. And I think we'll get there slowly, but yeah, every day there is a little progress for sure. Yeah.
Takar, if I may ask you about some of your favorite artists from the Indian independent music scene currently, who are, some of the amazing talents that you like, leisurely listening to in your free time?
At this moment, one of the bands that I like is from Mizoram, called Aurora Records. I listen to their music uh, quite often. Then my friends from Blue Temptation in Shillong. Um, Another artist I recently discovered was Dot. Really like her music. And Chirag Todi also writing some really nice music. I've been following his stuff too.
I'm sure you're referring to
Mm,
Spice Lemonade right now.
yeah, Spice Lemonade was was the song that I first got introduced through through Chirag's profile, and through that I checked out Dot's music, and I really enjoyed listening to it. Very exciting stuff. Yeah, so a lot of cool things are happening. So these are some of the artists that I've been listening to. Dot would be, yeah, one of them that I've recently discovered and heard a few of our stuff and really enjoyed it. Yeah. And of course, going back in time, I was a huge fan of Thermal and Quarter, Once Upon a Time, Them Clones, and bands like, there were some really amazing bands too. Soulmate was also very active at the time, and I was enjoying listening to their music as well. Yeah.
Lastly, to conclude, Takar, I believe you've just released your latest song, Just Another Phase. So for listeners who would like to get a brief idea about what that song is about, what is the immediate thing that you would like to tell them?
Well, it's a song that should probably like put you on a very positive headspace and a nice way to kickstart your day. That's how what I'll say, because we have our set of challenges every time, and we go through these phases of challenges and good times and bad times. So just another phase is just a reminder that just even if you're going through the worst of times, you still find joy in things that inspire you, or like you find some positive something positive in that experience as well. So just taking everything with a pinch of salt, and making the most of the moment and really enjoying the journey.
Takar, once again, thank you so much for doing this interview and for doing it while you are recovering. I'm so grateful that you took the time out to speak to me, and all the very best for all the amazing music that you're going to bring to us. And lots of love to you and the family. And of course, to the little one who has my heart rent free. She, for sure. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
talking to me, Takar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Been a real pleasure. Thank you.